And if they tell you the name of the game, boy, they call it riding the gravy train. Oh, doo-doo, doo-doo. The good old days when I used to smoke weed with my friends and sit by the river, watch at the sky with no worries on my mind. Listen to Pink Floyd and tripping balls on weed and hashish. It was fantastic. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. What do we have here now? So, my favorite newspaper, NZZ. NZZ is the Neue Zurich Zeitung. In my opinion, die beste Zeitung. My opinion. Why? Because based on personal observation, meaning reading it for, I would say, a couple of months, I have concluded that it's not biased towards this side or another. It might be a bit conservative in that it's not a pop newspaper. For an instance, when they reported about Jeff Bezos's wedding, they kind of like said that it looks a bit of an empty event. Like, and by empty, they meant with no substance, okay? And not in a patronizing way, but just like as is. So by that I mean it's not a pop, it's not a tabloid, it's not a popular, it's not the Bild, it's not, and at the same time it's not the New York Times that has no integrity anymore. It's just whatever they think is the news, that becomes the news. And they're a business, in the business of generating sensations and whatever, a different discussion, not even relevant. And I like that what they make sense, and there is a Meinung, like a commentary from a guy, Eric Gugel, I don't know if I pronounce his name correctly because it's Gujer, so it's Gujer, and it's called the Andere Blick. It's like the other outlook, view. And in short, what I'm trying to say is that what he wrote, the headline is Ohne Panzer und Kanonen, without tanks and cannons, like guns, like large guns, like how the refugee crisis plowed itself through all of Europe and Germany. And he's right. What basically happened is that if you read about history, just a bit about European history, you will know that the for many years, I'm talking about hundreds of years, the Ottoman Empire tried to conquer Europe, Christian Europe, invade and conquer, just as they have done in other parts of the Mediterranean and the close east, the as they call it in German, the east, that is the Near East, and not the Middle East, as they call it in English, because there is the Far East and then there is the Near East. Anyway, anyway, what I'm trying to say is, excuse me for the noise and the whole gas. There was constant attempt of Muslim forces to invade Europe. Some parts of Europe, they have succeeded. In Spain, for an instance, Sicily, for an instance, were Muslim territories, and they later reverted back to Christianity because Christian armies kicked them away. But there was a time when that was Muslim, and the Ottomans also had parts of Eastern Europe, more in the area of Turkey and Greece, and parts of Hungary, and former Yugoslavia, and that's why there are still countries there's still like Muslims in those areas that stayed from back in the day. Anyway, what I'm trying to say over here, that this guy who wrote in the NZZ, he wrote with no tanks and cannons, and he's basically right, because there was some kind of invasion into Europe, all over Europe, and I mean, they didn't use any guns, they just walked in. And the last time Muslims tried to break into Europe, at least in a sense of like a war, like an army, that was September 11, 1683. That was the night between September 11 to September 12, that the Ottoman Empire tried to invade Vienna. And just to do a zoom out, Austria, which was back then led by the Habsburg, and this is on Wikipedia, I'm not talking out of my PhD or any of my other holes. This is Wikipedia information. They had a big role due to geographic location in holding those Muslim, Turkish, or Ottoman forces for many years, because they were like the first line of defense, and they kind of like protected the rest of Europe, at least Western, I would say maybe Central and Western Europe, from those forces. And some people say that September 11 with the World Trade Center, that date was chosen due to the same date where the Muslim forces lost the war against united Christian forces. And if I'm not mistaken, without reading it right now, because I remember reading a book about it, the Christian forces basically won because of the Polish-Lithuanian king who came to help them and basically won that war, because there was a siege on Vienna. The Ottoman Empire made a siege on Vienna, and this guy, the Polish-Lithuanian, which was like a large empire a strong empire back in the day, they came to help them, and that's how they won. And after that, there was no more. That was kind of like a last event. But now there were no guns, there were no cannons, there were no tanks, there was no fight. They just walked right in. And all of a sudden, 10% of the population, 5% of the population here, 7% of the population there, blah, 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 and having many, many kids. And sooner or later, there's going to be a majority of Muslims in Europe. And to that I say, fantastic. Because if there is any kind of poetic justice, is that Europeans are going to be conquered by Muslims. And I've been listening a lot to a guy called Gad Saad, which is he's a professor. He's a funny guy. And he speaks a lot about, the end. He has a few books. And he's a hustler because he always talks about his books in every interview. So that's why I know the names of the books, because he's a very good salesperson. Every time he speaks to somebody, he mentions his books. Even though I never read them, I know the name. It has a name, Suicidal Empathy, and the end of the... Anyway, there's all those kind of like names. And he's not happy about the world being taken by Muslims, in the sense that it's kind of like painful. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like that because he grew up in Lebanon and he knows how destructive the Muslim culture is and the religion. So he's kind of like bummed out because they're now taking over Canada. He's Canadian, and they're taking over Europe and so forth. But let me tell you, this is freaking great, because me, rien ne foutre. You know rien ne foutre? Foutre. I don't give a shit. I don't give a damn. Because I'm not invested in the system. Because I read a book by Stefan Zweig when I was in my late teens. And the name of the book is Die Welt von Gestern. And let's see if it's Die, yeah, it's Die Welt, yeah, that was good. If you ever try to learn German, study German, you will know that there is such thing that's called Der, Die, Das. And it's one of the, for me, it was pretty tough to study because the rules are very fluid and not, there is, anyway. So I don't know, sometimes it's Die Welt or Der Welt or Das Welt, in what part of the structure of the sentence, in which place, it always changes. Anyway, I was correct, it's Die Welt. Die Welt von Gestern is The World of Yesterday by Stefan Zweig, and I read this book when I was my late teens, I don't know, 19 or 20 or something like that. I was a young man, pretty naive, and that. I remember when I read this book. That was many years ago. That was like 30 years ago. But I just remember having that feeling of, wow, I don't want to be so invested in a culture so much that if that culture breaks, I'm going to commit a suicide. Because technically, that in a nutshell, that what happened to this guy. And this is not a spoiler, because it's known that he wrote this book and then committed suicide after that. And it's not related to the book, to the story. It's just, he was so connected. He was a writer, and he was so connected to the culture of pre-war, World War II, Habsburg culture, and the language, that when Nazis came to power, he was mentally and emotionally destroyed. That's the way I see it. Because if not, why would you commit a suicide? Because you've seen the world, and he calls it the world of yesterday, because the world that he was so ingrained into just became a monstrosity of evil, and he couldn't handle it. He was like, that was too much for him. So for me, always being an outsider, even in my own country, I never felt very much connected to the culture. So I always felt like an underdog. So I never had this kind of like, for me it was natural not to admire the culture I'm in, and always keep my own independence. So, I mean, I understand that for most people this is not the case. And if for somebody who's like, let's say, who grew up in, I don't know, in I don't know, in Japan or whatever, and then the country is becoming crazy, that can be pretty dramatic. And you are in a group that is being killed and murdered in a fucked up way, then I understand his position. But I also, what I took from this book was that I do not want to entangle my life into a society or a culture in such a way that if something changes in this society, my life is going to be destroyed. I don't know. Maybe that's why I ended up living in different places, different countries, different cities. Maybe that, I don't know. I'm not trying to self-analyze myself, but maybe that book has something into. Maybe that book kind of like molded me in a way, and that experience of his kind of like, well, it was ingrained into me. So I see, in a sense, the same feeling that Stefan Zweig was having in Gad Saad, even though he's a very positive guy. So he's very sarcastic about it, and so he's cracking jokes about the whole thing, and at the same time he's also trying to make money out of it by selling books describing the phenomena. So I don't think he's taking it in the same way dramatic way. Stefan Zweig took it, where him and his wife committed suicide after this book was finished. But I can still sense that beyond the hustle and beyond the jokes, it bothers God's side also in a way. That the life, the culture that he loves and the country that he adopted him is becoming such a shit show. So I don't care. Like, I observe, and of course I would love it if that was not the case, if the world was not full of hate of one group against another, doesn't matter which, and if there was more understanding between people. But at the same time, I'm not really a big fan of humans in a sense that I'm an antisocial guy. So I'm not like heartbroken because I never had so much faith in humanity in that sense. So I'm like, okay, it's not an ideal situation, but I'll try to make the best out of it because, 30 years ago, I've already organized my mind to handle this situation, after reading this book. So where I'm going with all this is that if Christian Europe wants to allow millions and millions of Muslims from all over the planet and wants to give them money and support them and so forth, so be it. This is Europe's problem. This is not my problem. Yes, right now I live in a country that's part of the European Union, but I don't live in a big city that I experience that every day. Like last time I was in Milan, I was in some shopping mall, and every second I saw like a Muslim couple with a kid walking with a stroller. Like really, the amount was like insane. But here, where I am right now, I don't see that, and that's part of the reason why I'm here. But I think that sooner or later, something that's going to come to a boiling point. Something is going to happen. It's not going to happen now. It's going to happen later. It's going to be a clash. It's inevitable. I'm just wondering if, like, how France has a crisis problem, like a debt crisis right now. They have a very unstable government. I believe this is already the second government that's been appointed, second prime minister since the last election, and then the last election was like a snap election. And just the facts that there are parts of French cities that even the police cannot get in, and there is Sharia law over there. And again, this is just, if you look it up, you'll see that this is not. I'm not inventing here theories. I feel like that's by itself speaks a lot and speaks volumes, as they say. And I believe that that's why President bitch slapped Macron. That everybody saw that his wife slapped him in that airplane. Everybody saw it, so you can't deny it. You've been slapped by your mother that also had a baby with you. I don't know, man. You're a messed up person. I'm telling you, if I had a kid and that kid would have an affair with like 20 years older than him teacher, and then get married with her, and then have kids with her, and then get slapped in the face by her, man, I would not be happy about it if that was my kid. Like, how do you let your wife slap you? How do you end up like marrying a 20-year-old person who was your teacher? I don't know. This whole story is messed up. And I'm sure this is only the parts that we know, and I'm sure there's more to this. But hey, man, you do what you got to do. But I'm just saying, the fact that Macron is always coming with those statements, I think he's trying to deflect from the real problems that he has at home. You know, because he has a mess at home. This country is a mess. I feel for the French people. I know there's a bunch of communist and left-wing crazy communists in France. I was married to one for a couple of years. But I also know that there are a lot of good people in France that love their country. They love their culture. They're very proud in their. They have a lot of pride in their culture, in their language, in their cuisine, in their history, in their culture, and they feel bad about all that's happening to their beloved country, especially the big. Like now, it's not even only in Paris. Like, you know, in Marseille and other cities as well. You know, the gang violence and all the Moroccans that bring all the drugs into France, and they. Again, I'm just talking about stuff that I read in French newspapers. You can read it if you go to today with Google. Don't be lazy, because you can translate all the newspapers if you don't speak French. And you know, those newspapers can be. I mean, eventually they're reporting facts, and once you go over all the BS. So. I don't know. I mean, it's either the right parties are gonna take over and do something extreme as re-immigration, or there's just gonna be eventually blood in the streets, because I don't see how this situation is going to end up well, because like, people are not stupid. You know, if the country has no money to pay for your pension, then why do they pay all those migrants? And again, talking about statistics, the majority of people who lives on welfare and social benefits and government funds in European countries are, let's say, migrants, okay? Or people from migrant background. And I don't want to get into religion, but I will get into religion. Many of them are Muslims. And you know, eventually people are going to be fed up. Like in a sense that, because even now people are fed up. Okay, so the AfD can be the biggest party in Germany, or the FPO can be the largest party in Austria, or Marie Le Pen can be the largest party in France, but they're still not in control. They're still not in the government, because all the other parties are ganging on. They're making a gang against them, trying to outlaw them, trying to either trying to outlaw the party or either trying to, they go into a they try to legally assassinate the leaders like they did to Le Pen and many other leaders in right-wing parties in Europe. And so eventually people are going to be like, wait a minute, I'm going to vote and eventually I'm still getting the same thing. So I'm just curious what's going to be the breaking point, because usually the breaking point is either financial or a war. And there is a war going on in Europe, and billions of dollars from European taxpayers are going to that war. It's just people are not, until they don't feel it on their own flesh. So they're going to be squeezed more and more and more, and at some point it's going to be enough is enough. And either people are going to be violent, either going to be some kind of leader who's going to violently take control. Something is going to happen. Until then, it's just going to be a disaster, financial disaster, as it is right now, where the yield on the French bonds are 4.75 right now, or something like that, 4.5, which is very high. And the debt, GDP of France right now is 114, which is high. And it's just gonna derail like that. The economy is gonna go down and down and down until it's just what do I care?